On July 22, 1882, Edward Hopper was born in New York. He was one out of two children, and he was raised in a Baptist family. He showed interest in art at the early age of 5, but enjoyed painting watercolors and oil on canvas the most. After graduating high school, he suffered from depression due to a lack of income from his art pieces. Also, great artworks were hard for him to come by. He even thought about switching professions to become a writer. In 1913, he was finally able to sell one of his artworks. He thought that this was the beginning to a great start, but his work would not take off until many years to come. In 1923, he married Josephine Nevisin. She was also an artist, and he met her during a summer painting trip. During the Great Depression, Hopper did well compared to other artists, and in 1931 he sold 30 different paintings. Museums like the Whitney Museum of American Art and the Metropolitan Museum of Art bought his artworks for thousands of dollars. During the 1940s, he slowed down and produced far less artworks. The 2 decades following, he had major health problems, leading to his death on May 15, 1967. The woman is the only person in the image. Not only is she alone, but the woman appears trapped, according to Totally History. There are no doors leading in or out of the automat, but she is not trapped inside of the automat. She is trapped in her own personal world, where no other people exist. The woman appears to be staring into her drink, indicating that she is thinking of something. She holds the tea firmly in her hand as if it is the last thing she is able to hold on to. The background is dark, and the woman is light. This focuses the attention towards the woman and helps the viewer to capture her details more drastically. A high contrast creates for a sharp transition between light and dark colors. This makes the girl pop out. When one is lonely, he or she tends to think a lot. This explains why she is in deep thought. The reflection on the window only includes the rows of ceiling lights. When looking at a window in reality and a reflection of a ceiling light can be seen, one can usually also see the reflection of the interior of the room. However, Hopper omitted these reflections, possibly because if he included them, it would take our attention away from the woman. Let's take a look at the way the woman is dressed. She appears to be dressed in a green coat with black fur, suggesting that she must have came from, or going to, a formal event of some kind. In the painting, we can see her mood is ambiguous. In her isolated world, no emotions can be expressed. Both inside and outside the automat, no activity is taking place. This adds to the loneliness of the woman. The woman's legs are the brightest subject in the whole entire image. This makes the woman more wanted from or seductive to men. However, I do not think that those were Hopper's main intentions. Also, showing lots of skin in this day of age was not as common as today, and the purpose of women starting to change their clothing styles was intended to show rebellion towards society's norm. Levin says that Hopper was asked to explain why he chose certain subjects over others. He responded, "I do not exactly know, unless it is that I believe them to be the best mediums for a synthesis of my inner experience." The black window avoids the viewer from seeing what is happening outside the automat. This does 2 things. 1, it focuses the attention from the viewer to the girl, and 2, it strays away from the realistic theme Hopper displays in most of his paintings. No cars or street lamps can be seen, no engines can be heard, no life is outside. Complete blackness is all that there is left. Although there are a group of people sitting at the bar, they are all lonely, wrapped around their own thoughts. As stated by the Art Institute of Chicago, the 4 anonymous and uncommunicative night owls seem as separate and remote from the viewer as they are from one another. In the painting, the time of day is in the night, causing for the streets and the other poorly lit areas to appear dark. Inside the room, it is very well lit, calling for a bright picture. This creates high contrast in the painting and directs the viewer's focus towards the inside of the building. Similar to Automat, there is no activity in the painting. Outside the building, there is no form of life. It is bare. Inside the building, all of the characters seem to be in deep thought. Not only does this create a quiet, still scene, it adds to the isolation of the building and the characters from the outside world, the viewer, and even each other. One can see that all of the characters are dressed formally. Maybe they all came from work or a wedding. Their formal clothing indicates that the characters are of upper or middle class and gives the painting an elegant, rich vibe. Clear windows not only allow for the viewer to see the inside of the building and its subjects, but it also reminds the viewer that the characters are trapped inside of the building and inside of their own world, similar to Automat. As stated by the art story, the clear windows in the painting help the viewer to capture the alienation and loneliness indicative of modern urban life. All of the characters' moods are ambiguous, similar to that in Automat. This, like I said before, adds to the loneliness and isolation of the characters. Each are in their own world. Here is a comparison of the two paintings, side by side. You may pause the video if you need to, now. In both of the paintings, the subjects seem to be isolated from the outside world. As stated by DeWitt, despite being gathered together, the figures have very little interaction with one another. Also, Hopper may have been painting the reality of the world. This is common in his paintings due to his realistic traits and how the people living on it tend to grow more and more less communicative with one another. The Art Institute of Chicago claims that he said he was unconsciously, probably, painting the loneliness of a large city. During the 1920s, also known as the Roaring Twenties, the United States economy was very high. Everyone seemed to have the money to afford things, even the lower class. This possibly explains the reasoning behind her extravagant clothing. Also, this woman that we have been talking about all along is Hopper's wife. Shocker, right? Hopper just started to become popular at the time, and his status guided him through the Great Depression. During the early 1900s, automats, which were cheap places where one can find food from vending machines, were quite popular. Hopper took the advantage of this automat in order to paint this beautiful picture of his wife. 1940s were most remembered for the World War II. During World War II, America was greatly respected. This ultimately affected the attitudes of the citizens at home, and more of the population took greater pride in their country. World War II was also what helped the country arise from the Great Depression. A lack of communication and negotiation, seen in both the world and the painting, between the countries is what helped the cause for a world war. This follows Hopper's consistent theme and reflects realistic traits. As stated by Levin, Hopper possessed a predilection for realism.